one of the biggest distinguishing factors I see between people who are massively successful, both financially, in their relationships, in their health, in all aspects of their life, really, is they operate from clarity. They have a relentless pursuit when it comes to clarity and not operating from confusion. So how can this change your life quickly? Well, one of the fastest ways is to understand that most people are operating from a state of confusion, and they don't understand their priorities. They don't understand their strategy in life. And most often they can't be honest about what they're really after. They don't get on truth from the get-go. And because of that, they can't even understand the games that they're trying to play or the life that they're trying to live. And so you've got a lot of guys out there that are like, oh, I want to make a bunch of money, or I want to drive a Lamborghini, or whatever it may be. But they don't have clarity about what they're doing. It's like, okay, well, how much money do you want to make? What type of Lamborghini do you want to have? When do you want to have it? What's the medium with which you're going to do that? What business model are you going to select? How are you going to solve a problem? What's the value that you're going to bring into the world? How do you do this? And confusion this is interesting, because if you ask plenty of people, they'll say, oh, I'm really clear. And it's like I talk to people and they'll be like, oh, I know how to eat healthy. And I'm like, well, what does that mean to you? They're like, well, I know how to eat healthy, I just don't do it. And I'm like, okay, really? So you know how to do it, but you don't do it? Yeah, man, I know how to do it, I just don't do it. And I'm like, so what the fuck is wrong with you? I mean, Stephen Covey said, to know and not to do is not to know. So I don't know if I agree with that or not, but at least acknowledge and get on truth that clearly it's not a priority. And I think a lot of people don't understand strategy. They don't understand priorities. And in their mind, they have this vision of what their priorities are, of what their strategy is, but the reality doesn't reflect it because their behaviors don't reflect it. And in their mind, they weave a story about how life is going, but your life is ultimately a reflection of those priorities. And so if your life isn't showing this, then chances are you haven't actually gotten there, and you don't have the clarity that you really want. And if you had that clarity, then you wouldn't have to search for it. So what do the top percent do? The top 1% are relentless about having clarity on what they're doing. Why? Because it's so important. Because they know and they understand the principle of leverage, that it's not about how hard you row. It's far more important about the boat that you're in. It's far more important to understand that with small inputs, you can get massive outputs. And we have this pervasive thing in our society where it's like, well, I'll just work harder. I'll just work harder and get better results. It's like, look, numbnuts, everybody's working hard. You can't outwork people that are already working hard. You can work smarter. And what's difficult? Why is it difficult? It's difficult to sit with the discomfort of lack of clarity and to sit down and say, okay, how do I gain more clarity from the confusion that I'm feeling? I don't understand how to take my life from where I'm at now to where I want to go. And let me just say why I'm qualified to speak on this, because I've spent the majority of my life in these states. I've spent the majority of my life operating from confusion. And it's part of how I grew up. I don't think my family had a lot of clarity, but I can't blame it on that. And I'm not going to, because I believe in taking responsibility. And so part of that is I have to take responsibility for me and what I'm working on. And so part of that is I have to create more and better clarity in my life. And so I'm relentless about this. And sometimes people don't understand it because they're like, dude, like, it seems like you're not moving as fast or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that's okay, because the moves that I make are far more strategic. And it's just like Warren Buffett. If you think about Warren Buffett, he hasn't made that many moves, but when he does make moves, they're really good moves. And so it's not always the amount of just action. It's finding a really good, appropriate strategy that fits you, that helps. And how do you do that? You have to be relentless about clarity. So once I identified this in my life, it was like everything changed on the back end of that. And part of pursuing clarity and turning confusion to clarity is understanding the process of saying no. It's understanding the process of, once you begin to get clear on exactly what you're after in life, then you can say, you know what, like, I don't actually care about going and doing the things that other people care to do. I don't care about sitting, like, I was living in Dallas before. I'm over here in Boise, Idaho now. And I don't really care to go sit on patios like most people do, and they'll just waste their Saturday or Sunday away, which is fine. Like, it's very relational. I'm not saying that they're wasting it, but a lot of people go and they don't have a peer group that they're elevating themselves in these conversations. It's more just to talk about the shows that they watched on Netflix. And so they're just living vicariously in multiple ways. And if that is within their value system, more power to them. I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with, and what I think most men struggle with, is that these things are outside of their value system, and they're saying they want to change their life, but they don't know how. And that's where confusion enters the scene, and really getting on truth enters the scene. Because if you can't be truthful, then how do you actually get clarity? Well, you don't. Because you have to know yourself. And how do you get to know yourself really well? Well, oftentimes it's painful. It's looking at your inadequacies, like staring nakedly at your inadequacies. That's what Tom Bilyeu says. And it's true. And that's been my process. That helped me a lot when I understood that, to really look at myself and be like, hey man, you're delusional in some of the stuff that, like, you're not living your life in accordance with the things that you want. So to give an actual example, a few years ago, I tried to start a business with my father. It did not go well, and I was crazy in debt. I was drinking like a fish, and like, I was in a really bad spot, and eventually I had to literally look in the mirror. Like, I remember this conversation that I had with myself. I literally sat down in front of my mirror, and I actually, like, I was there, I was like crying and like halfway just really struggling. And I was like, okay, I gotta be honest. I'm not doing the things that are gonna take me where I wanna go. I'm not doing the things. So what do I need to stop doing? I was like, okay, cut out the drinking, cut out the self-deprecation, cut out being so hard on myself, give myself a break, forgive myself. Okay, what do I really want to do? Well, I have never wanted to live a traditional life. Like, my highest value is freedom. And I don't really care about a lot of the things that plenty of people do. Like, do I care about money? Yeah. Why? Because it represents freedom to me. It represents the ability to do things, movement, locationless, being able to travel. Those things are important to me. But money in and of itself is just a means to an end. And I had to get clear. I had to get clear on where my priorities were and where my priorities weren't. So then I was like, okay, my priorities aren't high up on going and just socializing pointlessly. And matter of fact, I wasn't even crazy about the people that I would socialize with. Okay, well, I need to cut these people out of my life because they're not adding value to my life. I'm not really adding value to their life in a certain sense, because I don't feel good about the exchange. Like, I don't feel good about this. Like, I'm trying to do things and live a life that is rich, full of experiences, that is rich, full of really tapping into my potential, really becoming the man that I'm proud of. And part of that is, like, I love to read, I love to learn, I love to level up, I love to do big things. And I want to be surrounded by other people that are living in accordance with that. I want to be around other people that are also wanting to do big things, that are also like pushing themselves and just have a vivacity for life. So that's what I did. And so I cut a lot of people off, and I totally transformed my life from top to bottom. And I found a lot of mentors and books, and lo and behold, it turns out you can go read books and you can learn a lot. And I've always read books, but my frame of reference wasn't quite there yet to fully understand what I was going for. And once I developed that, once I changed that frame of reference, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I need to be far more ruthless about getting the clarity that I want, the things that I'm after in life, and then being honest about it. Because let's face it, like, I grew up in this church and really like family where it's like, oh, you don't dream too big, kind of stay humble, don't showboat too much. And it's like, no, fuck that. Like, I want to do big things. I want to live a lot of life. I want to be a badass motherfucker. And so I am. And that's how I choose to be. And I don't want to have to hang my head. I don't want to have to do these things. Like, I don't want to be humble about stuff or shy about wanting big things. And why should I be? And that starts with permission and giving yourself clarity to be like, hey, I actually am after acting like my own hero. I actually am after going for big things. That's important to me. Those are things that I want. That's okay. But how would I manifest those things into my life? How would I bring those things into my life if I didn't first tell myself it's okay? Like, it's okay to let people go. It's okay to let my former self go. It's okay to not have to operate within the parameters that other people dictate as reality. And once I got rid of those things, it was like, oh, I don't have to play by other people's rules. I don't have to do things the way that society says that they have to be done. So I don't. And I don't play by those rules. And that's why I live a life that I think is one of the best lives ever lived, that I think is awesome. I get to live in my dream location, and I get to, primarily work from home. I've designed my business in a way that I own my business. My business doesn't own me. I love what I do. I get to help other people, and it's fantastic. And I get to help people the way that I needed help, because when I went out there, I couldn't find any help that certain way. So I had to become that person, because I think society sells so many false paths, so many things where it's like, hey man, like, I don't understand how to be the man that I want to be or get the results that I want out of my business. And it's not the big things that are holding people up. It's oftentimes the little things. It's oftentimes the fact that people just haven't learned how to get out of their own way. And for me, once I learned how to get out of my own way, I still get in my own way, by the way. I'm not perfect. I'm always a work in progress. I'm sure here in 5 years, I'll look back on myself and be like, dude, you were so stuck back then. But that's a process of growth. And that's why I've changed my life so much over the last 5 years and 10 years. And I go home occasionally and I'll just look around and I'm like, dude, these people are the same people that I went to high school with. And I'm going to be 36 here soon. That's 18 years. And they're the same person. And I'm nowhere even remotely close to the same person. So it's just fascinating. It's fascinating. And, ultimately, you have to decide if clarity is going to be something that you pursue, or you're just going to accept and operate from a state of confusion for your whole life. But I promise you, if you'll sit down and you'll demand more clarity from yourself than anyone else, if you'll demand that, you'll start asking better questions, you'll start getting better results, and I promise you, your life will change. So, hope this helps, guys. Be great.